ध्याय ऋषि साधु संत, तू अनादि तू अनंत। ध्याय ऋषि साधु संत। सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So you've had 1 month. Any questions that you had during the month which you would like to deal with now? I see many of you were there for the month, so many of your questions were dealt with. So anyone has any questions now? If not, we will continue with what we were doing. So we were talking about how we join dots. Okay, so we have a bunch of facts. All of us have some facts or some ideas, and then we somehow join those. And from that, we create some sort of picture for ourselves or some sort of image for ourselves. And it is by this process that we have memory, we have understanding, we have all these various things. If you did not join these dots, you would never remember anything, or you would have no comprehension of anything, because you sort of join the dots of something, or all your childhood memories, you join the dots and call them, they are my childhood memories. If you did not have anything stringing it together, then you would not have any understanding of what all these things are, isolated memories of various things. So then we studied about how some people look at the world and they have no reaction. Means in certain things, we don't seem to join dots. They're merely watchers in the world. They'll look at something and they'll see, okay, it is so. I mean, no reaction. Like a child or an animal, they're not trying to make any correlations between things. So they're very young, the intellect is very young. Then as you grow, you start making correlations. Say, oh, this is somehow related to that. And when you do this incorrectly, okay, so then you have what is a superstition or a false belief. For instance, you say, suppose one person, for instance, one person from a certain community did something bad to you, and then maybe one other person did something bad to you, then you say that whole community is so bad. You won't say that those two people did something bad. Or, sometimes, like in the famous classic by Dickens, this Miss Havisham, she was rejected in her love, or she was insulted in her love, or whatever, she was ditched in her love by one man. From that thing, she decided that all men were horrible and she has to wreak revenge on all of them. So these kind of correlations when we make, this is what we generally call superstitious or blind or baseless. because there's no correlation. You're making a correlation when none exists. Or one person tells you something. And based on that, you start a whole theory of God alone knows how many things. So this is all superstitious correlations. But as your intellect grows, you begin to correlate correctly. Maybe you get the causation right. Maybe you get the picture right. So these people become like scientists. So they can easily understand what causes what. They don't get carried away. They know for certain, right? Suppose a person says to you that I don't eat anything at all. I eat nothing. But every day you see, I eat nothing in the daytime. Okay, absolutely nothing. And then you say, every day I'm seeing you putting on weight. How is it possible you don't eat anything? So what does it mean? Suppose I see it claim to not be eating at all. But every day I put on weight. Every day you see me getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Then, and nobody has seen me eat anything in the course of the day. What will you conclude?
You stuff your face at night.
Yes, you have to be eating at night, otherwise it's impossible. So when you understand causation properly, nobody can actually trick you, because you know for certain that, just because nobody saw you eat doesn't mean you didn't actually eat. So in fact, it's a very famous thing. I don't know, what is it? Devdat, not Devdat. What is that chap's name? Mahesh, you're familiar with this? It's a famous thing from logic, Indian logic. Devdat, I think.
Yeah, I think it's Devdat.
Devdat. Devdat doesn't eat.
Yeah.
Nobody has seen Devdat eat. But he puts on weight. He's going fatter and fatter. Therefore, you conclude that he eats when nobody is watching. Otherwise, there's no way this is going to happen. So when you understood this correctly, you are less fooled by anything that goes on in life. Some people understand the worth of discipline in achieving goals. Okay, they achieve their goals. Some people say, no, so you bless me, then I will achieve my goal. Such people live in some fancy dreams of their own. So at every stage, a disciplined thinker knows how to join the dots. Remember the three types we've got. One doesn't do any join. Second one joins, but joins it all wrongly. Third one joins and joins it correctly. And the brilliance of Upanishadic masters is, in just a few sentences, they can join the dots of the whole world. That's that amazing thing, right? One Vedantic law joins how many dots? And if you just get that, how much of this world is comprehensible? So that's where we were, right? We've done up to there, correct? So shall we continue? All okay up to this point? So let's continue. So the first paragraph, fourth last line. Let's start with the third line from the top. A picture, they say, is worth 1,000 words. So why is it worth 1,000 words? Because it has given you the entire connection just by that. So you remember Lakshman's cartoons, for instance. There were just a few words, but they summed up the political or the social situation of that time. Joyce, you know Lakshman's cartoons? You know that also? Joyce, you know everything about India. I have to stop asking you anything now. So those cartoons were, in a few words, they just said whatever comment he wanted to make socially or politically. It's also the reason why laboratory experiments make more sense than science lectures. So you hear all this noise at you don't get it. When you see it, then suddenly it all clicks because the dots have been joined for you. And doing makes people learn faster. That is why in Vedanta also we say first you start with what?
Karma.
Karma yoga.
Karma. Nobody believes in karma. They all say, no, I'll study Vedanta. I will, no, get down to karma. Do that work, because when doing it, then you actually get it. Otherwise, you can talk forever about unselfishness. But do it, then you will know what it's really talking about. And doing makes people learn faster. Poetic justice is another such linkage. So, when you see that people get the just rewards of whatever they have done, the handful Vedantic laws are another such linkage, helping us make sense of the world around us. Piecing the jigsaw together, the whole tapestry of life stands revealed, which you may have experienced, because so many times you hear something in Vedanta and you say, oh, finally I understand this. So the whole tapestry of life stands revealed. Writing a book, for instance, is not just so many facts, but a correlation, a system between the facts. And the better that is done, the better the readability and comprehension of the book. Thus, novels are easier reading than non-fiction. And popular non-fiction is easier than scientific treatises. But the people who can see the tapestry in the solemn treatise find it just as interesting and memorable. If you can see it, if you can see the picture, even if it's a solemn treatise, it's just as interesting. But most people cannot see it. So therefore they like novels, or then they like popular non-fiction. But the point is, as long as you can see the connection, it works. If you can't see the connection, it doesn't. All right, all clear so far? So now the question is, how do we see the connection? Go ahead, Deepraj.
Yeah, so the handful Vedantic laws that help us piece life together, more often than not, it confuses the people, right? Because it's like a very high level of instrument that we're working with. For example, if you misunderstand a Gita verse, then your life will go completely disarray. So it's a very powerful tool, but most often misunderstood. I mean, even by people that do read the Gita daily or reflect.
So it's got nothing to do with whether you read it daily or not. It's to do with whether, A, you're capable of reading it yourself. And if you're not, do you have somebody to teach you? There are very few people who are capable of reading it themselves. But they say, I'll read it. And then, of course, the moment you read it, you want to tell other people about it. So the less the other people understand, the more of a guru you become. So they'll say, yeah, he's read the Gita. So many times you can say the whole Gita from first to the last shlok by heart. So what if you can say it by heart? Doesn't mean you understood a single word of it, but it's considered a big thing. So, I mean, it's good to memorize the Gita. I'm not saying you shouldn't memorize it, but it doesn't replace comprehension. So yeah, people do misunderstand. People, if you don't, so they are in the second category, right? You didn't join the dots correctly. And that's that. Wherever that knowledge came from, same laws will apply. Okay. So now where was it? So when we're talking, we have a new student in the class, Joyce. Now, when we were talking about connecting the dots and connecting it correctly, the big question will always arise as to how do we do this? How do we connect it? How do we make sure we are not misunderstanding, that we are connecting the dots properly, we are not creating a superstition out of anything? For that, we come to the second level of knowledge, which is called manana. So, first level of knowledge was Shravana, and we studied all about it. From Shravana, the linkage is that you have to create the picture for yourself. How do you create that picture for yourself? We come to the second stage of knowledge, which is known as manana. We read the newspaper and search the net, but did we gain knowledge? When we memorize, do we have knowledge? Gaining knowledge is a change in thinking, a change in perception. Did you learn anything in college implies, did your thinking change in any way? The altered or improved thinking is the education one has received. The passing of the grades of exams may or may not reflect this. Finally, from so little sleeping and so much reading, his brain dried up and he went completely out of his mind. Without rest, you keep on applying the brain. What happens is you go out of your mind. And haven't you seen that? I know so many people like this. So I hope you can also remember people like Don Quixote. From so little sleeping and so much reading, his brain dried up and he went completely out of his mind. So what is he trying to tell us? What is missing in this?
The reflection.
That's what he's trying to tell us, right? He's not saying that you shouldn't do reading. Your reading and your reflection have to be proportional to each other. T.S. Eliot, in his literary criticism, maintains that when new knowledge is gained, the whole structure that existed before is affected, and the whole previous structure must change to accommodate the new. It is not the adding of one more column, but the revamping of the edifice. I don't know if you all have ever read literary criticism, and T.S. Eliot has this concept about the same as what we're talking about, which is that every little bit of knowledge changes that structure. So it's not so much like you're adding something, but you're making a change in the structure itself. And that change will only come through reflection. Always the answer will be the same this time. Comes through reflection. Reflection is not idle thinking or mental wandering. It is disciplined thinking on a particular topic, deliberating on the topic until it has been dealt with and its various ramifications considered. It's not just mental, it's not just idle thinking. You are very clear what you're thinking about. And you're going to continue to think about it until you have dealt with that thing. And having dealt with it, you are able now to see what are the ramifications. Means what if this be so, then that has to be so. You can understand this. Reflection occurs when the intellect deep dives into an idea to understand it completely. Reflection gives rise to comprehension and application. So when you understand it, you start doing it. It gives rise to comprehension and application. Now, what is mental wandering? Look at this lady over here. She starts thinking about rebirth. Wonder if rebirth exists. But is our birth really sorrow? Yes. Shilpa had such a bad time with her husband. But not all husbands are bad. Some marriages were. I wonder why. It must be destiny. Or is it luck? But hard work is required. See how much money Bill Gates made with all that hard work. But what use is money after all? So this is the kind of thinking we have, which you started with. What is she started with? Rebirth. Then she's gone to whether rebirth is sorrow. Then she got to relationship, money, covered the whole wide world. This is called mental wandering. This is not reflection. Who has not experienced being asked a question, going mentally blank, and then hearing the answer, realizing that we knew it? This happens when the information has not been reflected on sufficiently. So another example of this. One thing is mental wandering. So how do you know you're doing mental wandering? That when you were ever asked a question on that, you didn't know the answer. But then somebody told you the answer and they said, yeah, correct. Choice. Is joining the dots a form of reflection? Joyce, you are able to join the dots when you have reflected. That is a consequence of reflection. What is called jugaad in Hindi is a particular Indian capacity. In fact, the capacity in all developing countries, where limited resources have to be put to best possible use, often to multiple uses. Jugaad is making use of the available resources and coming up with a commonsensical, low-cost solution. So jugaad, you're all familiar with the word jugaad, right? Which basically means that you are solving a problem without the necessary resources. Sonam Wangchuk. You all have all heard of Sonam Wangchuk. The Three Idiots movie was made on him.
Yes.
Sonam Wangchuk famously solved the problem of water shortage in Ladakh with the brilliant and cost-effective idea of artificial ice glaciers. Basically, what he did was, I don't know if you all are familiar, he's got a YouTube video on this. He made these ice stupas. Okay, so when the winters were there, he made the stupa, and then when the weather changed, the water was available for these people. I mean, it would become a stream, so they could use it. Now, the reason he needed to do this is because, I mean, normally also that's what nature does, right? But because we have interfered with climate so much that we have interfered with the processes in Ladakh. Oh, let's read it, it's there. So therefore, the rivers were not flowing at the right time. And when they were flowing, they were flooding. And then when they needed water, none was flowing because of this whole issue of climate change. Nice, you can put that back. Sonam Wangchuk famously solved the problem of water shortage in Ladakh with the brilliant and cost-effective idea of artificial ice glaciers. The physics was simple. It was the law of water seeks its own level, something known to every school kid. He used it to tackle the result of climate change in Ladakh that led to flash floods and later drought. So when the rivers were, Taruna.
Ma'am, you said there are two things. One is mental wandering, and another is when somebody asks you a question, you don't remember, but somebody tells you, then you remember. So how come is it not a memory thing and then not the reflection? Means we don't remember sometimes something. So does that mean we don't know it really?
Yeah, memory comes when you have reflected, no?
Means if somebody reminds, so it has been recollected from the memory.
Yes, but when it's a matter of comprehension, then your comprehension has come because of, your understanding. You've understood that thing. So it's no longer a matter of memory now.
Okay.
So, but if you're not bothered, like suppose I suddenly ask you, who fought the Battle of Plassey? Now we all studied this in school, but not one of us are going to remember, right? So we had to do all that stuff, right? And then whatever. Battle of Panipat. Who fought Battle of Panipat? First Battle of Panipat was fought between whom? We studied it in school. You all remember studying it in school? Remember Panipat? There was a battle there. Now, which battle, which king, who fought, who remember? Because nobody put in any thought in that. I mean, there was nothing. It was just like we had to remember this thing and write it on our exam paper. And the moment we finish writing it, it's free to leave our mind. But suppose we were interested in it and we understood a lot about that battle, why it was fought. You got the whole picture. Nobody needs to explain, remind you. I'll tell you, first battle of Panipat was between, what's his name? Babur and
Ibrahim Lodi.
Ibrahim Lodi. Here's my Vidushi. Babur and Ibrahim. Only Vidushi will remember what happened in school. Where Babur and Ibrahim Lodi fought it. Second battle of Panipat was fought between, I'm pushing it now.
Hemu and Akbar.
Third battle of Panipat,
Abdali and the Marathas, but I don't remember the name.
it's okay, you can fake it. Nobody remembers what it was. You can say whatever you want. I'm going to verify. Then, who fought Battle of Plassey? Who will remember all this? See, Vidushi does her homework. She thinks about it and so it's not memory, you see, because you understand why it was fought, when it was fought, what was the need it was fought. Once you got all this stuff in your head, it's not a matter of memory. That's why we don't remember a single thing in school. Because we didn't bother to think about it at all. Nobody bothered to tell us anything about it. In fact, I used to hate history. I used to think history was a terrible thing. And most people think
Same
that.
here. I never used to like history because I had to learn everything.
Yeah. But actually, history is the subject that should never be rote learned because it is stories. And the
Yes,
stories.
yes, those days.
Yeah, I mean, we studied it like that. But if we had a good history teacher who would have told us many stories, later on in my life, I met somebody who loved history. And he used to tell me, how can you not like history? And then he'd tell me this happened and that happened. And when he told me, it was all very interesting. Sama had this vague notion of having studied it sometime, somewhere. So if you have somebody who loved it and told you that story and all, then it makes perfect sense. Then you remember. You remember that Babur came in and Ibrahim Lodi was already there. You remember all this stuff. The first who came in, who was there already? Why was he already there? You understand all this stuff. So if you reflected, it's not a matter of memory. If you've not reflected, then you are Shakuntala Devi, and if you can remember any of this stuff. Joyce, you know Shakuntala Devi? She can remember any series of numbers you give her. She'll remember. How is that possible? I don't know. She was a mathematical something. You give her any number, she'll add, and you give her any series of numbers, she'll remember. Deepa, you can remember series of numbers? No. So either you have to have her kind of memory powers, or you have to have understanding. Now, memory powers was too tough to develop, so I suggest we all develop understanding. Understanding will help us more than that memory will. Okay, is that clear? So if we have been doing mental wandering in our so-called studies, then end result is we can't answer the question. But if you studied it when you were very young, and so your memory is very good on that, then you will answer out of memory, which is a little futile because what's the use of it if it's not converting to action?
Right. Got it. Thank you.
But Janki ji,
Go ahead.
but with the age, it will not get affected, even reflected things.
In fact, that is your advantage as you grow older. Your capacity for reflection, because you have a lot more experience, actually can improve. Memory will decline with age. But if reflection is good, you will actually do better than the youngsters. That is how nature compensates us. Because your cells die, right? Just as we die, our cells are also dying. So our brain cells are also dying. Many parts of our brains become less effective as we grow older. Like our bodies also, like suppose as a 20-year-old tennis player and a 40-year-old tennis player, the 40-year-old have to put a lot more effort than the 20-year-old. The 20-year-old is like, his body is much more effective. So similarly, brain. But now what happens with the brain is, because it has this plasticity, that's what they call it nowadays, it has these compensating functions. So
Okay.
you don't need to remember, because now you can understand. Just that's a great boon we have for those of us who are older. Now, maybe Vidushi or Deepraj or all these youngsters. Anshul, is that Momita Anshul? No, it isn't. Oh, it's Anshul. It is really Anshul. Sorry. I thought you were Momita because Momita's son is Anshul. Are you new to the class, Anshul?
No, I've attended in past, Dr. Chanki, few times.
Okay. I probably just assumed you were Momita. Because that's what many parents, they put their children's names over there. So you have to, in this class, you have to be alert who is whose wife, whose son, whose parent, because that's how you figure out who's over there.
Joining the dots correctly.
So when we are, what are we talking about? When we are younger, we have memory. But when we are older, we have
Understanding.
understanding. That makes up. Okay. So it's a wonderful thing, right? I mean, that our brains have that plasticity. Until our last day, we can actually be quite effective. Not that there is no deterioration, but there is, you have so many compensating things. Nature is an amazing thing, no? If one kidney fails, they kept another one there for you. An amazing thing. Okay.
One more question. In old age, it's understanding. Just a technical question. Understanding is also in the form of memory. Can we say that?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to your mind, whether it is memory or whether it is understanding, there's no differentiation, right? But since memory decreases with age and understanding can increase, has a potential of increasing, you will appear to others as if you remember a lot.
Okay. My video froze, so I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, so where did you hear up to?
After my question, I couldn't hear.
Okay.
I'm
So,
sorry.
all right. So there is not much difference between understanding and memory as far as an external viewer is concerned.
Right.
Because a young person remembers it because they remember it. An older person remembers it because they've understood it. So
Right.
for a person viewing, I mean, both know the answer.
Right.
So understanding gives you memory or recollection or whatever, just as memory itself does.
Right. So one is from the stimuli or experience, and another is from understanding. Both comes into memory.
Yeah, I mean, just recollection. Recollection is memory.
Recollection. Yes,
And
recollection.
also understanding appears like memory.
Right.
Like if you understood a verse, you might be able to actually say the words in the right order, but that's because of your understanding.
Right. Thank you.
So
Janki, I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
So, when does reflection really become wisdom? Or introspection is reflection? They both are the same things, and when does it like really translate into wisdom?
When we can never answer the question. You have to have done enough so that there is some change in the personality. So when Krishna answers it as Nachirena, Nachirena means not long, ere long, in some time. We can't say, because when you reflect, basically two different forces are functioning in you. One is the force of desire, and one is the force of knowledge. So when you take in knowledge, it is, where did you disappear? Oh, there you are, okay. So then these are two opposing forces, as it were. So gaining knowledge in some ways reducing a desire, or reduction of the desire in some ways gaining knowledge. I mean, you can't really differentiate. These two things are happening together. So something in your personality has changed, which means the desire has been modified or whatever. Like a simple thing, right? Suppose you wanted to buy a Titan watch, and you went into the store to buy a Titan watch, and the store that had the Titan watch also had Rolex watches. So then they explain to you why this Rolex watches is so much better than Titan. I don't know, okay? I hope no Titan person here is going to get on my case. I believe Rolex are good watches, but if going by the assumption that they are, then now that the desire for Titan watches has reduced, and the desire for the Rolex watch has increased, because now you found out something, understood something. Now it's moved. Right? So there's some change that took place in the personality. So similarly with any form of higher and lower knowledge. So that desire for the lower has to decrease if you got information, and information means you understood something about the higher. Now, how long will that take? Ram bharose, karte raho.
Thank you.
Okay, so coming back.
Sorry, one thing.
Yeah.
We talked about the interconnection between desire and knowledge. In fact, in the previous text also, we have been talking about it, that the real knowledge is when there is a change of behavior, which means a change of desire. Otherwise, it is empty knowledge, or meaning it is superficial knowledge. So that part is well taken in the concept of life and its design, etc. But I'm saying that in a more operational way, in your domain, etc., you could have an increase in knowledge, and the desire may change, but it will not go away. In fact, the desire may get kind of heightened. So I may kind of gain more knowledge about my subject, and now I have a bigger desire to achieve something, make an impact, do something differently. So I'm saying that in the domain this thing, what is the correlation between desire and knowledge? It definitely is, huh?
The desire has been affected, no? Now you want something bigger.
Yeah. So it will not reduce. It may just be, it's changed. So the operating word will be that if there is knowledge, there must be a change of desire. If there is a change of desire, it must have happened because of some knowledge, right?
Yes, but in this case, the lower desire, which means the desire for a smaller thing, has been given up for a desire for a higher thing. So the principle will stay the same always.
Yeah. So
first you wanted to say run a corporation of, let's say, 100 crores. Then you saw, oh, these guys who have 1,000 crore corporation have X, Y, and Z. So now you want to have a
So that's the distinction I was making, that in this field, it means a change of desire, which could be a bigger desire, 100,000 crores instead of 100 crores. On the other hand, when we talk about desire in the Vedantic sense, we would say higher knowledge would mean a reduction in the desire because that is the right way to go. So I'm saying in the domain that may not be operational in the same way that there does not have to be a reduction. It'll mean a change. That was the distinction I was trying to highlight.
Lower desire has been given up for the higher one. The
So
100 crore has been given up for the 1,000 crore.
So in this case, a 100 crore desire going up for 1,000 crore is that it's a higher desire from a domain world, but from the point of view of simplifying your life and everything from a Vedantic point, it may or may not be a higher desire. If you want to do 1,000 crores because you want to make a bigger impact with your product, which is really, that's a different thing. But I may be wanting 1,000 crores because of my ego, which is not really a higher desire, even though it has gone up from 100 crores to 1,000 crores.
No, higher with reference, higher is a comparative term, right?
Mm-hmm.
So compared to the earlier desire, this desire is a higher desire. First it was 100 crores, now it's 1,000 crores.
Yeah.
So it is I want something more, I want something bigger, I want something. Even the same Titan and Rolex is the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like you have got a finer or a subtler desire in that sense.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That in this case, it could be higher, not in the subtler Vedantic sense that we would consider, but it just happens to be a bigger desire per se.
But
meaning, I'm assuming a Rolex is a bigger desire than a Titan watch.
And if you gain a higher desire than Rolex also, and you say, I want something fine, then you may one day say, I want to be a fine person myself. Instead of just my jewelry being fine, let me be fine.
Now that is a higher desire in the Vedantic sense also, because it is now subtler and it is taking you towards your goal of self-improvement, self-evolution, etc.
Except there's no such thing as in the Vedantic sense. It either is or it isn't.
I knew you would say that because you don't like this compartmentalization which comes naturally at this stage. Yeah. So how would you word it?
It is the same principle holds. When you know something better, you will leave what is worse than that. Principle stays the same, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The moment you have a knowledge of something better, like you have a knowledge of your teenage things, the desire for the toys will wear away.
So sorry, coming back to this 100,000 crore example. If I'm targeting 100 crores, my desire goes up to 1,000 crores, and this 1,000 crore is to feed my ego. Would you call this as a higher desire or actually a lower desire in whatever world?
Compared to the 100 crores higher, if it's to feed my ego, means in both cases, the ego business is the same. That is not different. The only thing that is different in this individual is instead of 100, it is now 1,000. That ego is what it is. It has always been like that. But now maybe his tamas is less because now he thinks of something more. I don't know. I'm just making up the data as I go along. But his level is not shifting in terms of his ego. Whether he's doing 100 crores or 1,000 crores, ego to be here.
No, ego to different hoga na, because if I'm budgeting for 100 and I now want to do 1,000, I want, to savor in the name and fame that will come, personal satisfaction that I've been able to, beat I'm saying all those kind of comparative things, etc. So in that case, along with 1,000 crores, my ego has actually increased and I moved away from my goal of being able to contain my ego and minimize it.
Fine. There is no reason to make that statement. Just okay, here's a man with, let us say, 80% ego. First, he wanted 100 crores, now he wants 1,000 crores. So his ego has stayed 80% only. It was 80% when he wanted 100 crores. I just made up this figure of 80%.
I don't know. But what does 80% ego mean?
There's no such thing. I just wanted a fixed point.
Yeah.
Okay, so at when he wanted 100 crores, it was the same ego functioning. And now when he wants 1,000, it's the same ego functioning.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think when you want 1,000 crores, it could be because you want to serve a bigger ego, etc. And that's coming because there is a knowledge that you've gained in your domain.
Why? Because there is no concept of devolution, right? You're never going to get a bigger ego than you have. You have what you have. You can only reduce it. So better that a person works for 1,000 crores than works for 100 crores because
Okay, I think that's the point. What you're saying is the ego part is a constant. It can only come down. You can't increase ego. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Yeah.
But ma'am, certain achievements strengthen your ego. Or some people with certain achievements. Does it not strengthen the ego? So is it not increase of
they are
ego?
what they are. When they are not achieving, then they go like this because they're not achieving. When they are achieving, then they go like this because they are achieving. But that ego has stayed the same. The ego is not changed. That is what is so fundamentally wrong in the concept that to be a spiritual person, I have to withdraw from certain things. Because it's not like your ego is going to reduce by your withdrawing from anything. You might as well be of some use to society by working a little harder. Because working is always a good thing. Working harder is a better thing than working hard.
But knowledge should help dissolving the ego now. Yeah?
Yes, it should. It should do that, but the discussion we were having was domain knowledge. And let us say that this guy who wanted 100 crores now wants 1,000 crores and he gains his 1,000 crores. Now to make that shift from 100 crores to 1,000 crores, his ego is going to get a huge beating. Because he's not going to get it by going and fighting with people. He will have to say, Hanji, Naji, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, to get that thing. So, achievement is always a good thing because it forces character on us. You can't achieve. You stay with your own views and all, forget it, you want to achieve. You stay with your ego, you want to achieve. You stay with selfishness, you want to achieve. To achieve, you have to grind your own personality down. Only thing is when the achievement is towards a very petty goal, then only that which affects that goal gets ground down. Right? Suppose my goal is to win Wimbledon championship. So everything that blocks me from that, I have to grind away at. My coach fires me. Who are you to say anything to me? I have to bear it, otherwise he will not coach me. Then I can't afford to stay up late at night because morning I have to go for practice, or I can't afford to eat certain food because I have to practice. I can't afford to go maybe on some vacation because I have to practice. Okay, so you have to control yourself if you're going to be an achiever. Now, in your life, it funnels in, okay, towards the goal. But the rest of the things outside that funnel, you don't need to control. But if you're working for self-realization, then you have to control the whole lot. Right? So basically, if you want to be Wimbledon champion, you have to control everything that affects your physical body. But if you're completely dumb in your head, you don't need to worry about it because it doesn't affect winning Wimbledon so much. So if your goal is self-realization, the whole thing you have to control. That's tough. But any achievement forces you to grind down your personality. You have to, right? How will you do it? Okay.
Regarding this, like when we're grinding down our personality and our goal is lower, that will lead to frustration because we're not looking at the whole gamut of our personality.
Yeah, will more than frustration may lead to a sense of futility, like you did it and now you're like, okay, I did it, now what? That's why you see many high achievers go commit suicide. You say, why you achieve so much, now enjoy your achievement. It's like, Okay, I did it, so what now? Not everybody, of course, if your intellect is working, not so. But if your intellect is not working and you haven't controlled other things, then you just feel like it's all been pointless. Because you controlled only those things that were interfering with your goal, which you had to do. There's so many other things in life. Like, for instance, you need not have considered your neighbor's welfare if you want to be wonderful champion. If you want to realize the self, you have to consider neighbor also. You can't disturb the neighbor. No, you have to think of everything. So it may not be frustration, but maybe a sense of futility, or in some cases, achievement leads to humility. Because now you have, sometimes when you do it, sort of your head bows down. Because you realize that, I just couldn't have done this on my own. So it depends on how that individual is.
That makes a lot of sense.
Coming back to Sonam Wangchuk. So, where were we? He used it to tackle the result of climate change in Ladakh that led to flash floods and later drought. So you get why this happens, right? The glacier is melted too early, so now there's a flood. And then at the time when it's supposed to, there's no river there because it was already melted. Wangchuk devised the system of putting pipes in the river at a higher point in the mountains. At the other end was a lower point. The water gushed out of the pipes in a fountain and then froze due to the winter cold. This created the ice stupa, technology without electricity. The stupas melted in the summer months and were used for farming. By creating many such artificial ice stupas, the people were able to freeze water and then use it as it melted in the summer months. Bodge British, redneck technology American, system D French also refer to the same concepts, also refer to concepts similar to jugaad. I mean, other cultures use these words, bodge and redneck and all of this. So is that clear? So how, basically put the pipe in the in the river, and then the water gushed out and froze. Because it was so cold, it's Ladakh, remember, it froze and stayed frozen. And then when it became summer, these ice stupas melted in replacement of that glacier. Very smart idea, no? And it didn't cost anything. It didn't cost anything means he didn't have the resources to store water and all of that. So we use nature's laws to do it. Fantastic thing. Wit also stems from the same ability, albeit in words. Wit is the ability to recall information at the right time and put it creatively in the right context. Like Steffi Graf's on-court response to a shout, "Will you marry me?" You must have heard of this thing. Somebody from the audience shouted when she hit like a really good score. So he shouted, "Will you marry me?" She quipped, "How much money do you have?" So instant wit. So there's another famous story of Winston Churchill. So this lady, she said, "Winston, if I was your wife, I would poison your tea." To which Winston Churchill replied, "Lady Astor, if I was your husband, I would drink it." So just the, that ability to be there and answer immediately. The question is, how do we develop the ability to use our knowledge fruitfully? We are all treasure troves of knowledge. You should all underline this. We are all treasure troves of knowledge. You know how much knowledge we all have? If you add up even all the ages of everybody in the class, we will have many, many centuries worth of knowledge just amongst the few of us. They're all treasure troves of knowledge. The physics Wangchuk used is known almost universal. Why do some people come up with brilliant ideas while others don't? The key to this lies in what we do with the knowledge acquired. The wine of knowledge must be sipped for its influence to take place. That is manana. When we do this, the knowledge interacts with our thoughts and creates new patterns. Actions change. Mere Shravana does not bring about the sea change. So, the ability to apply, wit, all of this comes from that digested knowledge. To be well informed is different from having an intellect. Alcoholics, smokers know the ill effects of their habits, sometimes better than the rest of us. I knew a doctor. Doctor knows fully well the effect of drugs. You know how many doctors are on drugs? They have studied it in college. They help other people with it. But then, as the tension builds up in them, they inject themselves with these drugs. And I know one who actually died because of an overdose. So we know the ill effects sometimes. We know perfectly well. Sometimes better than other people. We can give a lecture on it. That does not mean that they refrain from it. Having an intellect means controlling the mind. This is the great knowledge we must have. What does having an intellect mean? That you're able to control the mind. That's what it means. To execute what one knows. What does control the mind mean? That means when you perform an action, it comes from the intellect, it doesn't come from the mind. To execute what one knows. It is fairly well known that gold medalists at universities are not equally capable in life. Many contemporary billionaires are college dropouts. Many intelligent people have also been known to become depressed or commit suicide. IITs are a case in point. How many people in IITs commit suicide, become depressed, all sorts of things? Reflection is the exercise by which knowledge is digested. Diet plus exercise is equal to strength. Similarly, information plus reflection is equal to intellect. As knowledge grows, the effect of actions is better estimated. As knowledge grows, the effect of actions is better estimated. That means you understand what will be the effect of what you're about to do. Thoughts become discriminate. Predictions become easier. There is pause and consideration before action. Hence, there is more success. Such stable people generally do better in life. If you're just a stable, disciplined human being, how can you do better in life? How is it even possible? The higher the knowledge, the greater the solidity or stability of thoughts. Many of you were there for this whole month at Rishihood, and that point was repeated over and over again. You cannot afford to be disorganized. You cannot afford to be all scatterbrained about things. Because if you are doing reflection, then everything should show, right? How systematic, how organized, it should show in everything we do. Now we're talking all highest Vedanta, but everything we're doing is all a mess. Then how? You've not thought of anything, you've not predicted what will happen, you've not considered what are all the various things, and what are we talking about? So as knowledge grows, that stability, that prediction, that things flow beautifully when you're able to think ahead. There's no thinking ahead. Okay, just go and do something. Then obviously it's going to be messed up. When knowledge is absent, the thoughts are fluid. They run all over the place. They contradict themselves. They have no clear direction. They are fickle. They're represented as monkeys in the Ramayana because of their jumpy nature. We call these thoughts mind. Knowledge is meant to control or govern them. What a beautiful thought. What a, like a word picture, right? Of mind. What is your mind? It's the monkey. What is a monkey? It's jumping from here to there all the time. Can't stay anywhere. Okay, Deepak Sethi. What is knowledge in specific terms in context of this text? What do you mean? What is knowledge in specific terms? You're muted. You're muted.
We've used the term knowledge in the last two paragraphs. I'm only trying to visualize that what kind knowledge is multidimensional. Yeah. So I'm just trying to put my arms around what exactly is the knowledge that we are talking about, which helps us to control the mind and so on and so forth.
Any knowledge is information. When you digest that knowledge, it could be any knowledge. It doesn't matter what it is knowledge of. When you digest it, it stabilizes in the personality and directs action. So it doesn't matter which knowledge it is. If it is knowledge of physics or knowledge of mathematics or knowledge of movie making, whatever the knowledge is. So you will see that people who are achievers in their field, they all show largely same characteristics. Because it doesn't matter what knowledge you took. What is important is that you reflected upon that knowledge and made it yours. And then you will see life changing because of it. And the deeper the reflection, the more deep the result, obviously.
So deeper the reflection and deeper the knowledge, the bigger is the result.
Yeah, deeper the reflection means whatever knowledge, doesn't matter what knowledge it is, but you thought about it so much that your personality changed. It could be anything, it could be marketing, it could be anything, it doesn't matter what it is. But that's why the Upanishad says all the Vedas are its limbs. What you exercise your intellect upon is not as important as you did exercise the intellect.
Sorry, what's the statement you said? All the Vedas say?
All the Vedas are its limbs. Vedas means knowledge. All the Vedas are its limbs.
Are its limbs. Limbs. Okay.
I don't know, Deepraj, whether that was limbs or monkeys or what that was all supposed to be. But okay, limbs. All right. Okay, so that's it for today. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Janki ji.
Hari Om, Janki ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janki ji.
Hari Om, Janki ji. Hari Om.